Hi friends, Mario Cavallo here. As many of you know, I recently rebranded my YouTube channel, which enables me to share more diverse topics with all of you. And this includes my work as an author. I've published 5 books now, and for several years I've been wanting to share them with my audience as an audiobook. That's what this particular video is. Mr. Ma's life adventures, success adventures, spiritual adventures, philosophical adventures, and it all begins with my first published book, which is entitled Catalyst to Change. What do a dying mother, Renaissance Europe, and the birth of jazz have in common? Heck of a question. 3 very different things in history, 3 different things in the life experience, and that question served as the core approach for me as I wrote this book back during 2010, 2011. I'm very happy to share it with you, and I will share it with you as an author book read straight through, and I hope you enjoy it. Catalyst to Change. What do a dying mother, Renaissance Europe, and the birth of jazz have in common? Introduction. We suffer, we struggle, we enjoy, we grow, we learn. We get tired. We want more. We get tired of wanting more, and then we want less. We live in a sort of trance much more often than we realize. If we stay the course, pushing ahead without succumbing to temptations, we grow. If we do succumb to the temptations, we often grow nevertheless. Then we ask ourselves, well, would it really have been better if I had not made mistakes in the first place? Or was I actually destined to make those mistakes in order to learn and grow? Was it necessary? Does the fact that I went backwards mean it was all inevitable? If I was capable of not going backwards, then of course I wouldn't have, right? So by now, your head might be spinning a bit from the realization that the mystery of your existence and the path we're all on, your journey in this life, a lot of it can never really be explained. Over time, you learn to drop things, to detach, to let go of outcomes, to be content with what is right now. It's all you have. Reminiscent of a lot of other popular wisdom of the ages, repackaged again and again by modern self-help writers. People like Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, and so many others. Well, it's fabulous. The teachings of the ancients are simply fabulous. Be as a child, not like a child, Jesus. Lilies in the field. They don't do anything. They just be lilies. Birds just be birds. They simply do what they naturally do. And cats. Well, let's not forget cats. Wouldn't you love to be a cat? If you told your typical American psychologist that, he'd suggest switching your meds from Prozac to something else. Meanwhile, in China, well, most people have much tougher challenges in their daily lives. Yet there's hardly a psychologist or psychiatrist or AA meeting to be found. Isn't that interesting? How do they cope with the onslaught of life's mental and emotional and physical challenges without a few $1 billion worth of antidepressant medications each year? How is it that throughout places like Australia or China, you need to make an effort to find a child on Ritalin? While in the United States, there are millions of supposedly sick, out of control kids on the stuff. Considering such a comparison, how do we even begin to define ideals like sane, balanced, happy, and successful in life? I mean, do we really need a spiritual root? Well, that's another core question that has troubled mankind throughout his fascinating and frightening history. In China, people drive like lunatics. Well, but they never get upset while driving. Now, in Italy, it's the opposite. In Italy, I watched our airport van driver lean out the window for 20 minutes, screaming and cursing at another driver. "Follow us to the airport," he yelled. "After I drop them off, I'll kick your ass." This was all in Italian. In America, if you honk your horn for 5 seconds too long, a driver might get out of his car and start harassing you, possibly with a gun, and confront you for being so rude. In China, horn honking, well, it used to be constant. There are no guns. It's really quite wonderful. All these contrasting behaviors, rules, cultures, expectations that we find in different families, different countries. Chapter 2, waking up to your luck and struggle. Paying attention to how other people behave, especially when it's completely different from your own system, is a wonderful way to wake up, to grow. We are often forced to grow, in fact, very much against our will. Have you noticed that? Our destiny, the blueprint of the universe, God's will, infinite intelligence, as author Napoleon Hill calls it. Well, it delivers a tomorrow much different than we expected, sometimes much better, sometimes much worse. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, author of Fooled by Randomness, the classic on probability, points out that if we experience fabulous success, we credit our talent, our hard work, and our determination. But if we experience failure, we blame bad luck far quicker than we blame our own deficiencies. We don't dare credit good random luck for our success because there's no juicy story and inspiring legacy there. Every single day, most of the world's population faces tough, painful realities that need to change, which we wish would somehow get better or go away. And while in this pursuit, we look for the vital skills, insights, lessons, paths, and understandings for making the changes we need to make, and for coming to accept when we face that which cannot be changed. At the same time, we seek peace, happiness, a sense of fulfillment and well-being. Every man in his own way makes some effort to solve the unsolvable mystery, the unanswerable question: what the heck are we doing here? As we explore that question from the point of view of astronomy in later chapters, it becomes increasingly difficult to comprehend our status in the universe. One family of poor farmers in the vast countryside of rural China is easily forgotten in a land of 1.4 billion people. It's 4 times the population of the United States. Our planet's relevance in an infinite universe truly cannot be comprehended. And fulfilling these needs for people, it makes up the primary focus of many of the workshops on communication skills and motivational speeches that I've done over the years. for many, many multinational clients, mostly here in China, because that's where I've lived for the last 20 years. And that's what this book is all about. We don't have time to waste in today's world. We waste far too much time chasing many so-called answers out there, when in fact, all we need are a few select vital behaviors, essential skills, and insights to have a meaningful, healthy life and to achieve most of what we want. Even then, it's still precarious. The purpose of this book is to make you think and rethink, wake up, and grow in awareness. It is my first book, and as I think about why I am writing it and for whom, I would say it's written by a person who himself struggles, that's me, and has the constant urge to improve and grow and conquer his own struggles. Inside many of us is that ongoing struggle. Why do I not do what I should do? Why do I not feel how I want to feel? Should I accept being and enjoy the present, or should I be doing more? How do I keep the pain of the past or anxiety about the future from interfering with the present right now? When I learn something of value in life, I'm instantly compelled to share it with others. I've always been that way. Don't ask me why. This is true. It just is. And so that makes me a teacher. That's a primary role for me in this life. This is a deeply defining part of my character as a human being. It's an important point to note that such an impulse can be unhealthy in a person. Motivated by an impulse to rescue others and a desire for attention and recognition. I mean, everything has its good and bad side. To some degree, I have faced and conquered my demons, realizing that deep down I simply want to make our lives and the world a better place. I see too much suffering and struggle where there shouldn't be. Don't you? I also aim to share with others the most valuable insights and distinctions I have found within the realm of the human experience. Human behavior, communication skills, cultural differences, performance in business, and leadership. The nature of happiness and achievement also includes the urgings of creativity and the power of synergy. I'm very much a teacher, yet I'm also an artist and an entertainer too. I'm a jazz pianist, though some say, you don't include this in a description about business, but it's part of who I am. I'm a jazz pianist and a pretty good one at that. I love playing jazz piano now more than ever, and I've been playing for over 30 years. I hope that in the next 10 years I do more concert performances, not less. I've already done many concerts in grand theaters throughout China, and I'd love to do more. So there's important lessons to be learned through the creativity in music that relates to other areas in life. It's a love and a deeply held passion. Therefore, it's important. If you have a deeply held passion, do it. It should be part of your life because it feeds the rest of your life. Allow yourself to understand. Run quickly and immediately from any person who would dissuade you from developing your passion and God-given talents. I'm fascinated that musical expression and our expressions within human relationships both hold some power. Music is a great way to help understand our creative, conceptual right brain activity. During many keynote speeches and workshops, I've used my piano on stage to help demonstrate how important musical expression is, to compare expression in music with expression in how we use our voice. The music also gives the audience a much richer and enjoyable experience. We all know music can stir the emotions, but they don't know exactly how and why. They also know why certain music seems flat, boring, lifeless. We call it elevator music in office buildings. So in the same way that a speaker emotionally connects with and grabs his audience, music emotionally connects with people. With the piano, I demonstrate how small, subtle changes can cause big transformations in feelings and emotions and perception. So, this is a what to do and how to do it book. I've armed it with many distinctions, insights, and skills. You will find recipes for action and practical tools in this book to help you make the changes you need to make. Here, you find my 25 years of collected knowledge as an adult, uncommon distinctions, inspiration, mind stimulation that I've shared with thousands of people in North America, China, Asia, even Europe on a couple of occasions. You will find plenty of happy milestones and moments of despair, too. Suffering and struggle are often found together on the path to success and fulfillment. That is the way God created the world. That is the norm, not the exception. This is a book composed of quick reads. It puts hard-hitting answers at your fingertips, makes you think from a fresh perspective when you're feeling stuck. It is a book that talks about how we become better, how we become aware, how we can overcome problems, discover our higher spiritual side, our pure self. It is also a book about achievement and skills for your business, your career path. You will learn and develop very powerful skills and knowledge that any career professional, any leader, any salesman should not and cannot be without. I also wish to point out there's a strong focus here on small changes that make a big impact within a particular context or environment. In other words, we spend more time going deep on a particular insights and skills than blabbering on in broad strokes about happiness and achievement. I write this book because I know with little exception we all need help sometimes. And specific help is often needed, much more than a motivational speech. Even the experts and gurus of the world appreciate fresh distinctions, specific, actionable skills, and reminders in our constant commitment to lift the world to a better place. My closest friends and advisors prodded and pushed me to answer a fundamental question. What's this book about? Who's your target audience? Business professionals, self-help junkies, salesmen, entrepreneurs, housewives, PhD? Well, it's for people who want to find vital skills, behavior, and understandings in the world. That's it. It's about sharing with you the, whoa, pay attention. This is hot. Aha! These kind of reactions you get when you've discovered a nugget, an insight, a new tool or skill or question. My quest for answers starts here, and it's my wish that these answers will support your quest too. Whether you're Warren Buffett, the investor, Malcolm Gladwell, the writer, Joey the plumber, Tony Robbins, the coach, or Mary, the dedicated full-time housewife and mom raising 3 children, some passage in this book will impact and lift your life in some important ways. Whoever gave the advice to always have a pen and paper or a recorder nearby for moments of inspiration knew exactly how valuable such advice really is. Much of this book's content started with the spark of an idea that suddenly entered my head. I'm in the habit of quickly jotting down the essentials so I can get back to it later to continue building its theme or direction. I think it's important to be natural, creative, and spontaneous when we communicate. So you will find that some sections are written in a more formal business style, while others appear more like diary notes to capture that feeling of spontaneity. So I encourage you, have a pen and paper in hand, or a highlighter if you're reading the actual book, to mark passages that strike you. You'll find a section of real-life experiences, stories, notebook entries, copied without edit. You'll even find a section with a number of prayers and affirmations I've written at some time. We'll cover a number of specific behavioral skills and quick exercises for improvement, especially with respect to your voice. You learn how to persuade others from a position of leadership. My clients and audiences know that I'm a fanatic when it comes to mastering your voice and channeling constant self-awareness of how you look and sound at all times. If you're on stage in front of people, you must be like an actor on stage, fully aware of every nuance of your behavior and expression. If your eyes are the windows to the soul, then your voice is the window of expression to the outside world. I can't deny it's exciting to begin the journey as an author, sharing my personal collection of almost 30 years of joys and frustrations and research and experience with you in this book. I hope you find it an eclectic and fascinating and insightful mix that lifts you up and guides you and gives you a fresh wake-up call for making the changes we need to make in this life. Next chapter, life's lessons. What do a dying mother, Renaissance Europe, and the birth of jazz have in common? I'll tell you the answer. A moment when everything changed. I will tell you this answer as I share the magnificent background. Moments in time of pure awakening and transformation. Now, let's explore how these stories weave together. Let me begin by sharing with you the birth of Catalyst to Change. Around mid-2008, I was asked as part of the trainer recruitment process by What If Innovation Company, one of the world's top innovation drivers, to create a fresh new presentation to their in-house team in their Shanghai office. My imagination was starting off on this challenge with a blank sheet of paper, and I found myself thinking about how I often thread together unrelated themes and topics. I do run often to keep fit, usually 4 to 6 kilometers. And as often happens while running, the creative juices popped out. The idea in the middle of one of my runs, and this magic question came together, along with all of the content which serves to answer the question. What do a dying mother in the hospital, Renaissance Europe, and the birth of jazz in America have in common? This was the birth of my next fresh keynote speech, which has been a delight to share with audiences since. Now let me thread together these 3 seemingly unrelated pieces. I found the story of Marilyn and her mother dying in the hospital in the book Radical Acceptance by author Tara Brach. She's a clinical psychologist and teacher of Buddhist meditation practices. With this story, she pointed out the moment in which Marilyn's mom, while lying in her hospital bed, said to her daughter, "All my life, I thought something was wrong with me. What a waste." Wow. In a moment, everything changed. as Marilyn's mom realized that, in fact, there had been nothing really wrong with her all those years. The sad yet powerful realization that her life could have been so much more fulfilling and happy than it apparently had been. Hopefully, it was a message her daughter Marilyn, sitting next to her at her bedside, took to heart for her own life. What about Renaissance Europe? This was a period in history from approximately 400 to 1400 AD that was known as the Dark Ages, and for good reason, before the Renaissance came. As historian William Manchester puts it, for 1,000 years, the vast majority of people didn't know what year it was, or even what century they lived in, an almost impenetrable mindlessness. Can you imagine? A hard to imagine state of affairs, especially considering the accelerating rate of change and transformation we are experiencing in today's world. So then, what happened next? What was the catalyst to change which moved Europe from the Dark Ages to its magnificent period known as the Renaissance, which began around the mid-1400s? The answer? The Black Plague, which wiped out half the population of Europe. In this case, such a broadly painful event led to the masses to question the authority and power of the Church, which was governing Europe, and the Church with both an iron fist and strict dogma imposed upon people's lives all across the land. The thinking of the day, which had been going on for centuries, was questioned and in myriad ways rejected, opening the door to a new birth in the arts, creativity, education, and much more. Life was never the same for the mankind of Europe. We move on to jazz, the invention of jazz in America. It's truly an American art form. Some explanations for the roots of jazz suggest roots in other music forms: ragtime, a little touch of classical, African rhythms, all swirling around early 20th century New Orleans. But in addition to these influences, there was another catalyst. Jazz also seems to have grown out of the pure, passionate, and inspired imaginations of a unique group of men living in poverty, very low-income New Orleans, mostly men of Afro-American descent. The good and beautiful news is that a fresh musical style was born, often under the particular influence of a powerful, powerful catalyst. The bad news is that, like Edgar Allan Poe, who did much of his writing while stoned on opium, the catalyst I refer to for these jazz musicians was heroin. Far too many of the original inventors of jazz died young due to the ultimately destructive effect of heroin on their physical and mental health. But wow, was it a great catalyst for their musical creativity. While regarded in all circles by respecting musicians and jazz lovers alike as legendary masters venerated for all of music history, we strike a sad note that the powerful catalyst to invention and creativity, which enabled this singular moment in musical history, was also negative and destructive, as was the Black Plague of Europe, which spawned the unforgettable Renaissance period. Now we reflect together on these three very different themes: one personal, one politically historical, and one musical and inventive. each demonstrating that there are moments in time in life, often rooted in deep pain, loss, and suffering, in which everything changes. It is as easy as you read these three powerful stories to reflect on the times in your own life when everything changed, when you became crystal clear about what was important, when you found yourself at the height of creativity and potential, but it came on the heels of your feeling so much suffering or burden. On a more positive note, leading to positive change, many Catalyst to Change workshops then move us to explore and identify less painful, more healthy, and empowering catalysts to change, which propel us to grow into our life's fulfillment, whatever that might be. My next chapter, an unexpected path in life. Look back on the past 20 years of your life. If you had sat down 20 years ago and taken a moment to write down where you thought your life would head in the next 20 years, how closely would it match reality? You can probably guess my reaction if you had sat me down at age 20 and said, Mario, here are the 5 key points on the path your life will take in the coming years. Let's take a look. First, you will have a very difficult time in your 20s and early 30s. Struggling with your emotions, your behavior, your sense of yourself, who you really are. You'll be emotionally unsteady and unsure of yourself. I struggled. And this was something I had no reason to anticipate or expect. I was far from a perfect human being. I made my share of regretful mistakes and choices and contributed my part to a bad marriage. Fortunately, in the end, my effort to learn and grow and improve and never give up paid off as I grew past those old issues. Secondly, you'll end up in a difficult marriage and you'll end up divorced at age 35. You'll need another several years to work through all that emotional turmoil on your own. As I said, I faced difficulties in my life that I never anticipated or expected I would face. As they appeared, I figured out the life rule that how I responded now would determine the quality of my future. I'm going to read that again. I quickly figured out the life rule that how I responded now would determine the quality of my future. Third, you will start a fabulous, wonderful new life living in Newport Beach, California. More and more, discovering the artistic side of who you are. Playing jazz piano will become a passionate part of your life, important part of your career as a speaker and entertainer. Now here, I finally began to see the fruits of my choices and effort as I grew past that less healthy time in my life. Fourth, 3 years later, as part of your new international life and career, you will move to China. Your life will be based for a few years in Shanghai, considered by many to be the hottest city on the planet in a country that is exploding with opportunities. Well, I continued to shift my values, to expand my life, my references, my experiences. I had to challenge old bad beliefs to improve my attitudes and behavior. I started getting better results both personally and professionally, and I was moved forward to new horizons. All unexpected. Fifth, based in Shanghai, you'll spend several months per year traveling around, including overseas, Southeast Asia, a few times to Europe. Your first European clients, which is a pretty important milestone, will be German. In Germany. Wow. After 13 years, you will happily remarry and plan to start a family. This all sounds like a fairly cool story, a mix of difficult and wonderful experiences. But if you would have told me this would be my story, I would have told you that you were nuts. In fact, let me tell you two key things that I never, ever, in any drop of blood flowing through my veins, would have ever imagined. First, that I would be divorced. As an Italian Catholic, the thought would never have occurred to me at any moment in my life. But I am. And only afterwards could I see that the universe, in its mysterious way, created the right thing for what was needed at the time. Of course, we all start off in our decisions with the best of intentions, but along the way, if we make mistakes, then that will affect our karma, our future, and what needs to happen next will need to be transformed, will need to change, whether you like it or not. The second thing that I would have never expected was that I would move to China. China? Yeah, right. Like many foreigners, especially Americans, I only viewed China as some faraway, vaguely sinister and communist place behind the Great Wall. Even today, so many people in the West are still trying to promote that ridiculous idea. Well, yeah. Well, it was a pleasure to arrive in China and quickly find out how untrue those negative stereotypes of the country are. And 20 years later, they're untrue. Also, it was fun to discover mind-boggling cultural and behavioral differences, which were priceless human experiences. Here I am now, celebrating my 22nd year living my journey based in China. And what a fascinating and meaningful journey it's been. Some say we find God in the details. You choose the goals and direction. And in fact, this is a critical step everybody must make. But we let the universe figure out the details of how we're going to get there. On my own journey, over the past few years in particular, I've found abundant inspiration in a number of books that I strongly recommend. I found myself fascinated and stirred as I read Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything. What a book! Malcolm Gladwell's bestsellers, Daniel Boorstin's books on history. Yet, as enjoyable as insightful as these books are, it was a single book from my childhood that led to the most inexplicably powerful event that ever shaped my life. I was in the 8th grade at St. John the Baptist Catholic School in the town where I grew up as a typical Italian-American immigrant family, Yonkers, New York. I was a rather typical boy, playing basketball, hated English class, and judging from the bruises on my shins from the girls' kicks, I was also a typical boy learning what chasing girls was about. During this time, my father was in the prime of his business career, with an admirable record of achievement, first as a sales agent and then a manager in the life insurance industry. Arriving home from school one day, there was a new book resting on my bed. My eyes looked over the cover. My mind had no idea what might be inside. Think and Grow Rich, the cover said. The author's name, of course, was Napoleon Hill. My father put it there. Just put it on my bed, hoping, I'm sure, to spark my interest. Looking back on it now, it's easy to understand that being in the tough field of life insurance sales, Think and Grow Rich would be exactly the type of book my father might be reading himself. I remember as clearly as that day. I remember crawling into bed that night, laying my unsuspecting head on the pillow, opening that book. And within moments of reading a word from the author, I was mesmerized. I couldn't have read more than a few pages. I was only 14 years old. Getting to a part about how thoughts are things and how Thomas Edison mastered persistence combined with creative imagination to accomplish his many achievements. And suddenly there was a voice in my head that shouted out, wow, this is how life works. This is incredible. I've got to tell everyone about this. I can never explain that. I can't explain what happened in that evening to me, that moment, that reaction, that epiphany, the fire of a realization that thoughts are things, which I immediately interpreted to mean thoughts are where everything that happens begins. It was a moment barely understood at the time, which defined the course of my life as a 14-year-old boy. At that moment on planet Earth, I can say a speaker was born, even though he didn't yet have a clue what that really meant. What I hope the story can mean for you is to realize and pursue what your deepest values and passions and interests are the moment you discover them. This precious life is not a dress rehearsal. There is no time to waste. When surveying the elderly on the experience of their life, their most common refrain, their most common regret is that they should have pursued and done the things they didn't. Now, for me, the next crossroad came a few years later at age 19, still driven by that same voice in my head many years earlier. I still had the crystal clear idea in my head that I was going to be a speaker, a motivational speaker, a teacher, like Napoleon Hill, like Zig Ziglar. I remember asking around, researching people and organizations that would help me in my goal to do this. Somewhere along the line, a person I read, or perhaps it was an article, referred me to Toastmasters International in the local yellow pages. I'd not yet met a single person who knew about Toastmasters International. And there I was, looking it up in the yellow and white pages of the Scottsdale phone book. I called the number, and I remember that I spoke with a man named Ed. He was the chapter representative, and of course, he invited me to attend the next meeting as a guest. Clueless, I walked into my first Toastmasters meeting, the Scottsdale chapter, on Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. at Charlie Brown's restaurant on Scottsdale Road. I told the group the same story I've shared with you here, that I'd read Think and Grow Rich under the covers of my bed 5 years earlier. My dad put it there. I also told them I was going to be a professional speaker. I wanted to be like the master salesman and motivational speaker Zig Ziglar. That same day, as a guest, I joined. That same day, I gave my first speech, which they called the icebreaker speech. The good fortune I experienced from joining that particular chapter of Toastmasters was another amazing experience for me. Even as I write now, even as I read it to you now, the extraordinary memory of those days fills me with emotions. I was only 19 years old. Next chapter, the firewalk. Here's a quote from Audre Lorde. When I care to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I feel afraid. Well, one of the most popular and exciting weekend workshops that I'd participated in many years ago included a firewalk on a bed of hot coals, and it was real. Usually related to personal development, the ability to firewalk, along with amazing physical feats, are a function of a heightened state of awareness and intensity, which shuts off fear and shuts off pain receptors in the body. If you put yourself in a trance, It's amazing what the body can do, and that's much the explanation for how it works. If I walked up to you and suddenly started smacking you around, calling you names, you'd probably become really, really pissed off. While in that heightened state of being really angry, you're in a heightened state of emotions and focus. Makes sense, right? During that time, if I punched you in the arm, you'd hardly feel it. I've personally done a firewalk at a weekend seminar, and there are several seminar leaders, including the originator, Tolly Birkin, along with other firewalk proponents. Peggy Dillon, Scott Bell. The one I attended was with Tony Robbins. I don't know which of them would have been the best one to go to, but I had a great experience. The thing is, I've got another firewalk story to share. My difference. I did my own first firewalk unwittingly, untrained, unaware, and all alone years earlier when I was 12 years old. And I hope you understand I'm not exaggerating this point to try and impress you. I was a typical 12-year-old boy when this happened to me, when this event took place without any awareness or understanding about human achievement, endurance, the awesome capabilities of the human mind, firewalks, heightened sense of awareness, focus, pain receptors. I didn't know about any of it. Here's what happened. Bursting out the door of my aunt and uncle's house in Scottsdale, Arizona, I ran onto the asphalt and simply kept walking. It was August, the middle of the summer, and Lafayette Boulevard was strewn with pebbles and bits of glass. I had just had a big fight with my mom, whom I adore, but didn't at the time. Now, no doubt for some silly reason. At that moment, I was a self-righteous, furious 12-year-old boy. In my mind, my mom was being unreasonable, unfair, couldn't be more wrong, while I was, of course, 100% good and right. I was so furious as I stormed barefoot out the door that I didn't care where I was going, or whether or not I had $1 or $2 in my pocket, nothing. I just had a pair of shorts on, a t-shirt, and I stormed out the door barefoot. So there's a question. Can a person usually walk barefoot on the black asphalt road in Scottsdale, Arizona, in the middle of August with an average daily temperature of 110 degrees Fahrenheit without noticing that his feet are on fire? Scientifically referencing Sarah Celestian and Chris Martin's paper on ground temperatures in the July 2004 Journal of Arboriculture, the answer is that the ground is around 138 to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. You would severely burn your feet, and it would happen quickly. If you placed a raw egg on the ground, it would cook. Now, here's the strange part. I did notice how hot the asphalt underfoot was, but in my state of fury, I didn't care. And guess what? Neither did my feet. I can't say my feet came away completely unscathed from this poorly planned, sun-baked dash in the sun. I think it's safe to assume most people know what happens even after 30 seconds of walking on the black asphalt in the Arizona August. And I did this, unlike these weekend firewalk seminars, I didn't do it for 30 seconds. I did this for 20 minutes. While walking, I recall clearly that my feet were frequently stomping on the pebbles and glass bits of metal typically found in the street. I was so pissed off that I simply didn't care about anything and just kept walking. The entire time I was intensely walking along. I didn't care what my feet were feeling because I was Superman. I was in an intensely heightened, focused state. That's the only explanation I can give anybody. Afterwards, yeah, my feet were tender. I had some minor blistering. I did, but that's all. It wasn't bad at all. One other factor did help. I was walking quite fast and nonstop. So perhaps we can say the actual length of contact time each time my feet hit the ground was quite short. I don't know. It wasn't until many years later in my work as a speaker and coach and trainer, I realized the powerful lesson to learn and share from that experience I had when I was only 12 years old. So here's my message on emotional intensity. Heightened, intense emotional states push out other external factors in opposition to the activity you are engaged in or focused on. Negatively or positively, your system acts as a powerful filter of the senses, including pain. Nothing else, no other thoughts or feelings or emotions bother you when you are in a heightened, more intense, focused mental and emotional state. This rule is equally true whether the emotion is intensely positive or intensely negative. The more intense, the deeper the groove is cut into your memory and mind and body and emotions. My next chapter, the 5 rules of rollerblading. Now, ideas are really cool things when they come along in a flash of inspiration. Mine often magically pop into my head when I'm engaged in sport or fitness. Life is like rollerblading came to me in a flash around 1998 when I was living naturally in ultra-cool Newport Beach along the Pacific Coast Highway between the Huntington Beach Pier and the Newport Beach Pier. I had taken up rollerblading, which was a blast and great exercise too. I became quite good at it. I would often rollerblade to the Huntington Beach or Newport Beach Pier area with my laptop and my backpack. That was a Micron laptop. I paid about $2,500 for it back then. Of course, nowadays, that would be an even better proposition with Wi-Fi being available at so many public locations just through your mobile phone. Well, one day, while getting myself mentally psyched for the coming evening's speech, the words "life is like rollerblading" suddenly popped into my head. I thought, I love that. The second it came into my mind, because I immediately knew everything I was thinking about that idea. My mind raced with these questions. Like other similar times of inspired thought, the idea was flowing out of my mind faster than the pen could keep up. I wrote furiously for 20 minutes or more before the stream of ideas was finally exhausted. And here's what I came up with. Life is like rollerblading because rule number 1, balance is the goal. Isn't that a beautiful reminder? Balance is goal number 1. Countless words have been written on the subject of balance. The world's oldest spiritual and philosophical writings speak of the magic and need for balance in life. Lose it and you could lose everything. Siddhartha famously achieved enlightenment through the middle way, neither pushing away pain nor pursuing desire. And here it is in rollerblading. Just being, just doing, just flowing, just being in balance. Don't take it lightly. In rollerblading, as in life, not keeping one's balance often means falling hard on your ass and regretting it in ways unimaginable. Life is like rollerblading. Rule number 2, the road is not smooth and even. People who drive vehicles and enjoy rollerblading hope for perfect smooth roads and paths, don't we? Unfortunately, Often the road is littered with all kinds of obstructions, rocks, pieces of glass, garbage, potholes. Some of them are big obstacles and some of them are little. Some of them are obvious obstacles and some of them are subtle obstacles that are hard to catch. You will spend plenty of time learning how to identify and overcome the obstacles you face in your life's path. Life is like rollerblading. Rule number 3, you're always in motion. Rollerbladers enjoy the awesome feeling of gliding along all essential. You will wanting the emotion. Let's catch the point. Achievement from it. One, use for effectively. The is in fact happening. Your friend. Three, bring it back. Be ready to receive. Now, make one figure out the best you take. Reasonable, sensible action that moves you in the direction it doesn't get you result. It is forward. Move you in the direction and you start doing it. And right here, I'm going to stop as part of my catalog on your There just seemed to be a momentary interruption of the signal, so I'll repeat. I've come to the end of this read, part 1 of Catalyst to Change. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to thanks, everyone. Have a good day.